The League of Women Voters Flint area would like to thank Communities First Incorporated for their assistance with recording Flint area candidates for office. And we also want to thank Flint Beat for assisting with these forums. We want to thank you as well for tuning in to the Flint School Board Forum. Unlike legislative forums, each candidate was interviewed separately and no time limit was imposed. Like the legislative forums, however, candidates were instructed to speak only about their own qualifications and not about other candidates or political parties. 15 candidates filed for a seat on the board. All were invited to do an interview. 13 responded. 12 completed an interview and one was unable to due to a family medical situation. 5 seats, and therefore 5 votes, are available. You may wish to take some notes as you decide which 5 you will select. Well, good morning, Ms. Doerr. We have 6 questions today. And the first one has to do with how you prepared for these responsibilities. People draw on different things in their lives. What has prepared you for these responsibilities?
Well, first, thanks so much, Lori and Peggy, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity and appreciate the question. So I'm Doerr, and I'm a candidate for the Flint School Board. And if you look at Michigan law, it's pretty vague, right? In terms of what requirement you have to be a school board candidate. You have to be 18 and register to vote. That's it. And which I appreciate your work on that, League of Women Voters. I know you register many people to vote, but the actual responsibilities of a school board, either there's some that are spelled out in a couple of different places, and things around managing the budget, managing the leadership, and making sure that they have a educational rigor that is maintained through the strategy. And so, those are like really vague concepts. And so how do you prepare for that? So I knew I wanted to do this quite a few years ago, but I knew I wasn't ready to run. I had moved back to Flint. I was born here and we lived here when I was young before moving out to Goodrich, where my dad was a teacher. He was a public school teacher in Goodrich for 40 years. And so that's where when people ask me where I grew up, I say, I born in Flint, was there when I was young, but then, really grew up and went to high school in Goodrich. Moved back in 2016 and knew that I needed to, get back into the community. I worked in City Hall at that time, managing community economic development grants for the city, federal grants, and knew I wanted to run for Flint School Board, but wanted to give it some time. So actually in 2018, I reached out to my undergrad alma mater, Central Michigan University, about serving on a board of one of their area charter schools that still served Flint kids, but was a public charter academy. And they had an opening on their Woodland Park Academy board. And so I actually joined that board in 2018 and served through 2021. That's when I stepped off, was in 2021. So served 4 years on the Woodland Park Academy board. Of the 400 students in that K-8 school, about 300 of them bused down from Flint to Grand Blanc. Grand Blanc Township is where the school is located. But yeah, so I learned a lot serving on that board. Was the board secretary, also served as governance chair, went through all of the good stuff, which, passing budgets to and having teacher raises, and facility maintenance and curriculum investments, and being able to really advocate for those things. So was able to experience those things, but then also some of the bad things, behavioral referrals. Kids can get very antsy in the month of May, and sadly there'd be a few referrals each year that got elevated. The severity of them would be elevated to the board level, sadly. And I think that experience was instrumental to get me have me prepared for this. On top of my day job, which I've spent 15 years in Michigan's community economic development industry in various roles, working for cities, the state of Michigan, regional chamber in Detroit, and also spending some time for a nonprofit here in Flint. All of that was focused on real estate redevelopment or community development, housing, a lot of grants management, because all of that work is grant funded. So cumulatively, I've been able to, over the 15 years, have over $100 million worth of grants that I have overseen a component of, whether it was the application of it, the strategy, planning, data evaluation, financial setup and monitoring, the programmatic setup and monitoring, and then the closeout and reporting. So that whole spectrum, I've had a lot of opportunities to do that in different worlds, different programs and different outcomes. So that's how I feel like I've been preparing myself to run and be a solid candidate and be able to serve effectively for the Flint School Board.
Thank you. The second question is, do you have ideas on how to maintain or increase student enrollment?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. Currently, my understanding is that there's between 12 to 15,000 school-age kids in Flint. That number is based on which census you look at, and less than 3,000 of them are currently attending the Flint schools. And I feel that the first important step is to just stabilize the district for the existing students. I think that has to be the goal of the first, I'd say, 2 years of, if I have the honor to be elected, the first 2 years has to be about stabilization and making sure that the parents that currently send their children to Flint Community Schools, making sure that we are rebuilding trust with them and keeping them, retaining the ones that are currently there, is paramount. And I think how you do that, I think first is the physical space. There needs to be funds invested, specifically ARPA dollars are set. I think would be the optimal funds to spend on maintenance of some of the existing buildings that we have students in. And that would help improve the physical space. So that way it's healthier, both physically, the air that's being breathed, the water, the physical space is a higher quality. I mean, they all need to have heating and cooling be improved. It also then, I think, would translate into like the culture, where I feel like that would help translate into the individual classrooms. So I think that's number one, is investments in the physical space, while also planning and putting in the steps to build new schools. If you go to school districts, Woodland Park Academy, being on that board, it wasn't a fancy new school. It's not like it was built in the last 2 years, but it definitely felt newer than our Flint community schools do. When you walk into any of the ones that are open, obviously Doyle Ryder is closed because of a black mold remediation need. But if you walk into Potter or you walk into Aunt Mott, it is an aged building. These buildings were built many, many years ago, and it's while I think you can do a lot with maintenance, and so there is something to be said for that. I think there's also something to be said for changing the culture of classrooms because of having new buildings that allow for better technology applications. I think if teachers can have instead of chalkboards or even marker boards, they have smart boards. I think that could be helpful. I think you can have more safety aspects, both the safety of cars that are coming in with traffic engineering, which you can do better with the new school, as well as buses and making sure that how the buses pick up, as well as access points for who and when people are coming into the building. That safety is important. I do not think that teachers should be expected to have the burden of safety all on them. I do not think that. But I think that the physical space could definitely help with the safety. So I think new schools. So I think maintenance of current schools while planning for new schools. I think that's how we stabilize. While also we have to look at some of the contracts. I know recent board meetings have included multiple paraprofessional representatives talking about their contracts and what they have. I know the teachers union we met with. So I think just honoring the people that are doing the work is crucial as well for stabilizing for our current students. I think making sure that we are supporting teachers and paraprofessionals is going to be key. And then to grow, I think that just takes time. I think we have to rebuild trust. I think we have to rebuild trust with parents that their students are being prepared for the rest of their lives when they come to Flint schools. And that just takes time. I admit I do not have children myself, but I have so much empathy for parents. They all want the best for their kids. I know they do. Parents, they want the best for their kids, and they need to know that choosing Flint schools is the best. And maybe they could always say, well, yes, I could always drive them out to a suburban school for school of choice, but instead we have just as good of an option here in our community, and there's more diversity, and that's a strength. And there's more tie to our history and our culture of Flint, and that's a strength. And there's more integration with the community, with all the different supports. There's so many different organizations that have a presence in our schools that I think can offer a lot of wraparound services for our kids, and making sure that there's more support to our teachers and interventionalists and parapros. So then that way all those resources can be accessed by all the kids. That's the kind of stuff that it's not glamorous. It's the day-to-day grind, but it's how you help kids. And I saw that growing up with my dad. What he did wasn't glamorous, but he grinded every day, and every day you could see the way that he impacted students. And so I think that those are so my big goal is stabilization and trust building. And I think that growth will be on its own when those things are, when we do the foundational things right. That's got to be the focus of the board governance.
Thank you. The next one is, how is the role of a school board member different from that of a superintendent?
So the school board member is there to govern or to have governance. It's not there to do operations. We are not educational professionals. Although there might be some educational professionals on the board, that is not their role. The superintendent's role is to be the educational leader and to manage the principals and the curriculum director and other staff. Also the operations. I'm a big believer in trusting the people you hire. I think micromanagement is a toxic work environment in any industry. Excuse me. In my day job, I'm the executive director of the State Land Bank Authority. And I have a staff of 8 people who report to me, and I don't micromanage them at all. I trust them. I challenge them. I make sure that I understand what their strengths are and where they want to grow, and give them the support they need, the training they need, the accountability, making sure that it's not completely hands off where you aren't engaged. No, you engage with goals and with accountability, but it's a shared vision. I think, for a governance board to adopt a strategic plan, which I know that the board did just adopt a strategic plan in the last few months. And that was done in tandem with the superintendent, which is good. But now that plan needs to be a shared vision with the principals and a shared vision with the teachers. And I think that the school board needs to give the superintendent the support to do that. it would be out of line for me to call a teacher. Now, if I'm in the public or a teacher comes up to me, it's of course I'm going to engage. I'm going to thank them for what they do, but that would be a micromanaging step, in my opinion. I think our contact is to be setting the plan with the superintendent, supporting the superintendent with the resources that are needed, both the physical resources, but also the kind of the cultural resources of how we handle ourselves and how that trickles down. But then allowing the superintendent to build that support from the ground up. I think students will feel that positive energy if the teacher in their classroom and the parapros in their classroom and the interventionalists in their classroom are all a part of this. And that's where the superintendent needs support from us to do that work while we do the governance work of looking at leveraging our funds with other funds and building better community partnerships and making sure that we are planning for the future in a strategic way that is aggressive, but also careful. And we've considered kind of where we are going and know that the superintendent is who we've hired to drive the train there. But in terms of the course and the path that we are going, that is informed by the work of the governance work of the board. I think there's a lot of opportunity. Good leadership matters.
Okay, thank you. Going to question number 4. Do you have other responsibilities that could interfere with your attendance at meetings?
I did talk with my boss about this, and also my HR director, and they're both very supportive. I work for the state of Michigan again, and it's a job that is it's definitely an important job, and it's definitely it is demanding, but it's also very flexible. And I think that they acknowledged that because of the flexibility is one of the reasons that they definitely supported my choice to do this. And I feel that the ability to have board meetings that are in the calendar, committee meetings that are in the calendar, I think all of that work I've committed to doing. And I'm anybody who knows me, if you've worked for me, you know that if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And I try to show up very prepared. I am a very energetic person. I'm blessed with a very energetic demeanor and work ethic. And so I feel that my day job is demanding. Some of the other things I do in the community around some of the more entrepreneurial things I have going, of course, those are things that are in my life. However, school board meeting schedules and committee meeting schedules will take priority. So I feel confident in saying that I'm from a time commitment perspective, I am prepared and excited to serve in this capacity.
Okay. Have you or will you be taking the school board training?
I have taken training when I was on the Woodland Park Academy board. I did a number of trainings through the Michigan Association of School Boards, MASB, and I will take more and actually with joy get the actual certification or whatever that is. Admittedly, we had a pledge on the Woodland Park Academy board that you had to do a training every quarter, and that was part of staying on the board. That was being in good standing was on a quarterly basis, there was some type of training you did. And as governance chair, that was one of my roles, was to just not keep tabs on my colleagues, because that sounds disrespectful, but more check in with them separate from the board meeting content and find out, hey, what are you focusing on when it comes to what you want to learn, what you want to do more of, what you're looking to grow your skills, and do you have a training that you want to do that with? And do I need to be asking for some funds in the governance budget for some external trainings from MASB, or can I be a representative to MASB to actually request specific training topics that they can develop something on? So I did take on that role and take that very seriously, and think that there should be a collective agreement on the board around that. And it's about respecting each other, that we all show up ready and that we are all engaged. And it's about respecting the kids, that they deserve a board full of people that are prepared to make these important decisions through ongoing training and awareness.
Okay, thank you. And now we're to the last question. What do you think are the most important issues that Flint schools are facing?
Ooh. I would, well, define most important. Is it a number one? Is it a top three or a top five? I guess, how do you define most important? But joking aside, I'm not trying to make a joke. This is imperative. In my opinion, there's nothing else as important as changing the trajectory of the governance of the Flint Community Schools for the improvement of the environment in which we educate children. Flint kids deserve better than what they're getting right now, and that starts from the top. I think Superintendent Jones is doing a great job, and I don't think that I'm not putting this on him. I am putting this on the current output of the board, that it is not good enough and it needs to be better, which is why I'm running. Not because I think I'm some individual who's going to fix it. I think I'm going to be an excellent team member and be a person that, as part of a team, we will be able to make this better and improve the trajectory, because there are major issues. I think the facilities is a major issue. The schools themselves are falling apart, from the parking lot to the roofs to the HVAC to the to the air quality and the lead paint, the asbestos. I mean, like I said, so I think the facilities should be maintained and improved enough now while building new schools. I think the blight, I think that the fact that the Flint Community School Board has never had a plan for all 23 vacant school properties plus the 11 they own or they are operating. So there's 34 properties right now that are under the ownership, and there should be a plan for all 34. And if the plan is to hold, and because this building can be repurposed, okay, how are we getting it ready for redevelopment? I've done that for 15 years. That's what I do in my day job, is prepping blighted properties for redevelopment. There are steps you can take to get those properties ready. If the property is beyond redevelopment, redeveloping, the building is beyond redeveloping and there should be demolition, what is the plan for funding that demolition? And in the meantime, how are we mothballing or at least kind of wrapping up the building to not have people getting inside that is dangerous, to not have things that are like windows breaking and bricks falling that is dangerous. It's a lack of security and the blight for the neighborhood. We've got to have a plan for that, and then a plan for land. I think that land is such an asset, and this is again part of my day job, is how do you take vacant properties and make them valuable for the neighborhood, for the residents, for the city at large. There's a lot of opportunity there, and having a plan matters. So land management and blight elimination and property redevelopment for what is the maximizing public benefit. I think there's so much opportunity. And then I think rebuilding trust with parents that they can, again, it's a two-way street, that they can trust the schools, that we are absolutely doing the best we can for their kids. And then they are doing the things they need to do as parents at home for their kids, and that it's a two-way street. And if there's again, I think there's a lot of things that if parents are interested in getting more involved, I think we could give them that opportunity. I think that we could really have, and this would be a great example of where, there would be a parent engagement discussion, and then we empower staff to implement it. That's not on the board to implement, but it is on us to have that vision and to be able to support it with both time and resources, and monetary, but then also resources of our partnership with community partners who can trust in our desire to actually work together and not just receive no feedback. I know a lot of the neighborhood associations that I've been going to their meetings. I mean, and I've gone to these meetings for years. I mean, starting in 2016, when I was at City Hall, I was going to neighborhood meetings and block clubs. And even then I would hear them say things like, we tried calling the Flint Community School Board, Flint Community Schools Administration Office to ask a question about this vacant building, and they aren't calling us back. We've got to have, the schools should be something that every Flint parent and every Flint community member is, has a positive interaction with. It shouldn't be negative. So I think rebuilding that trust with parents and that trust with community members and stakeholders and leaders and funders, I think will allow us to leverage our dollars. There's a lot of money available right now that can be leveraged in a really powerful way to support our kids. And then a final issue, I say this, I'm pretty biased because of my day job. I think career readiness, I think, is something that is I think schools have always talked about, but there was a lot of push toward college when I was growing up in the 90s. And I think that right now there should be a real effort toward career readiness that involves the skilled trades. I think that we have had so many skilled trades members retire in the last 5 to 10 years, and they are not being replaced quickly enough. And we have such an opportunity in our city, our county, our state, our country, our world. But building codes change when you leave the country. But I think there's a lot of career opportunities that do not involve college debt. And instead, we could get our students prepared for really very lucrative careers, and we can get them prepared in high school and middle school and high school for those careers, and they will be able to rebuild our city and rebuild our country from a building perspective and an infrastructure perspective. The 21st century is going to be all about rebuilding, because what was built in the 20th century, it needs to be maintained and rebuilt. And we built this country, and if you look at it, if you think about it now, this is how I think. We did a lot of infrastructure building and house building in the 1940s and 50s. And the kids that are coming into schools right now are going to be able to be graduating and being out in the workforce in the 2040s and 2050s, and all that stuff at 100 years old is going to need to be rebuilt. And so I just think that the having a pipeline toward those careers that will be lucrative. And I think Flint kids should be out in front. I think they should be the leaders. They should be confident in their skills. They should be able to open their own businesses and managing existing businesses, and they should have the confidence. And that's a huge opportunity for growth that I see for Flint schools to change the trajectory for our kids. So yeah, thanks.
Well, thank you for your interview today. And we're trying to remember to thank all the participants for participating, because whoever wins, being able to be out there and share your views and to run for office is something we really need right now. So thank you so much.
I appreciate your time, Peggy, and thanks so much, Lori, for your patience with my schedule. Thank you.